Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Mark. We featured Emotion Sickness in a live stream. For me, this is their best song from their best album, their fourth one, Diorama, released in 2002. The album marked the completion of a journey from their angst teenage grunge album, Frog Stomp, released when they were just 15. I hope you enjoy. We're going to be checking out Silverchair. The song is Tuna in the Brine, as mentioned from their Diorama album. Let's dive in and see what Silverchair is bringing to the table today.
I found the keys to my heart when everyone's heart seems so calm. And you found
the noise and dissonance of the strings into that resolving, punctuating idea. Nice 3/4 here. Love these harmonies, jeez. Trumpet over there killing it. Yeah, the second vocal, having a bit of radio static to it, is an interesting choice. Was that the cello and tuba together, just filling out that low end? Very theatric. Fun rhythmic ideas in that vocal line without sacrificing melodic complexity. Yeah, all of the tension there into this rise and then flat. Oh, going for another rise? Just holding on to that tension then. The metric mod on the drums. Yeah, I figured we were going to flatten everything out. They hung on to the tension much longer than I anticipated.
Painting a lie, seeing the colors, but you seem closer to everything.
I like that pickup, dodom, dodom, dodom. It's replicated in the vocal melody too. I don't remember the bells earlier. It's a nice addition for this softer section. Ah, we got harmon mutes in the trumpets.
Closer now than we ever have been. We're closer now than we ever
The flutes and violins off on the left, both doing these fluttery runs, building up of energy while retaining the section. Oh, yeah. So he held that anything out just a little bit longer, allowing the chord progression to shift underneath it. Introduce this outro.
Take another pill and tell another lie. Lie amongst your lies like tuna in the brine.
I feel like I must have heard Silverchair somewhere. I mean, I know recently we had them on live stream, as Mark mentioned. But I feel like that name just rings a bell. I feel like I should have heard them in my childhood, my teen years, something along those lines. But none of this rings a bell. I do find it interesting, though, that Mark described this as the end of a journey, starting in their teens, writing grunge, angsty grunge music at that. This is so far divorced from that. I can hear some of the more rock aesthetic in some of the chord progressions. There is that moody atmosphere that grunge likes to dwell within, present in certain chord progressions across this track. There are segments where I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, they definitely have a grungy background, incorporating that here. But for the most part, you really can't get further away from grunge than musical theater orchestration. This is a highly theatric track, from the vocal delivery, from the atmospheres, from the layering, from the instrument choice, from all of it. This is not grunge by any stretch of the imagination. And I think it's interesting that they took a journey that led here. I love when bands do that. First of all, just because I like musical theater. This kind of music really resonates with me, even if the vocalist wasn't singing. The music is still solid throughout this track. But to know that they started from, well, I'm going to make a wild guess here. I might be way off. From simpler music. Grunge tends not to be very complex. Into something like this, though. This is absolutely wild. And it reminds me of this other band. What was it? They were like a pop emo group. Was it Mayday? Mayday Parade? That's insane. Wolf Parade? I don't know. They used to do pop emo, and they put an album out this decade, which is like the most whimsical, theatric music I've heard in like a pop mainstream packaging. Just reminds me I got to go check that out. Someone's going to remind me of it. It's in a list somewhere. When I see the name, I'll remember it. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But that's what this reminds me of. A transformation from something a bit more mainstream into the complexity that they landed on. And I'm a huge fan of seeing composers grow like this. I don't have anything against somebody who writes simple music and likes it and sticks with it. Yeah. If you write radio rock for 15 years and you're happy doing it, I got no issues with that. But if you feel like you have more more in you, or if you want to learn more, you understand you're at a limitation, you've reached a peak and you're ready to grow as a writer, 100%, I want to see what you can do. If you got that drive, that hunger, feed it. And I think that's what happened here. And I'm all for stories like this, even if the end result isn't my cup of tea. It's theatric or complex in a way that doesn't click with me. Whatever, whatever direction you go, if you feel like you gotta write more, you have more complexity in you, you just aren't doing it now, or you don't have the chops for it yet, I want to see you go for it. And puts a smile on my face to know these kids started out in grunge and grew into this. Kind of stuck on this topic for a little too long, but I'm very passionate about that. What is going on in this track, though? It's interesting that right from the start, they tell you what the song is going to be, and they deviate very little from that. We kick off the song with very palatable, slightly memorable. I only say slightly memorable because we kick it off with something that's a bit more muted melodically, but slightly memorable vocal melodies. Strings, very light drums. I don't think there's guitar or bass at the beginning of the song, actually. It starts off with interesting chords on top of all this instrumentation that I'm not expecting for grunge. The chord progression is not grungy. The vocals are not grungy. It kicks it off with theater music. It's kind of expansive. It feels not necessarily like a journey. It doesn't have that larger than life feeling, but it does feel big. Part of that's the layering. You have a whole string section here. It's a lot of sounds. And then this just builds, but never changes. The orchestra is the heart of this track from start to finish, minus a bridge where we kind of bring things down to a more rock-centric idea for 16 bars tops before we start adding in, flutes and trumpets again. It really doesn't stay that way for very long. It is musical theater, theatrical music, orchestra. I don't know if I'd call it, it is classical, but like contemporary classical, leaning onto soundtrack a little bit. But it's not rock. It doesn't start rock. It never really leans into rock. These guys probably have a guitar and a bass and a drum kit in there somewhere on stage when they're playing, but I don't hear it in the mix too much. And I think that's an interesting thing. And again, I don't know if I would bring this up if I didn't know where they came from, but I still find that to be wildly interesting. Imagine being a Silverchair fan, maybe even skipping an album or two, and then picking this one up, and this is what you get. But it's beautiful. It grabs your attention immediately. There's all sorts of flourish going on, and I think what really stands out to me on this isn't necessarily just the harmonic change from grunge to musical theater, but it's the writing. This is one thing that's always going to impress me. Anytime somebody takes something a bit simpler, rock, punk oriented, metal oriented, and they move into the world of classical, there's a gut instinct maybe to take the new instruments and write them in the ways that you know how to write them. Write a metal riff for the violinist, right? Take the chords that you've been playing forever and put it throughout the brass section. But no, there's an honest attempt, and honestly, they're succeeding through this too, to write music that you would normally hear with these instruments. The movement, the dynamics, the melodies themselves, the ornamentation, all of it. It absolutely matches with what I would expect. And that's very cool. They could have just written a rock song with an orchestra, and they didn't go that direction. And it creates something that to me is exceptionally engaging. There's always something moving, always something going on. There's little details all over the place that put a dumb, goofy grin on my face just because I was like, oh, they thought of that. That's great. Um, Towards the end, when we kind of brought things down into that little rock oriented, quieter section, and then off on the left, as things start to grow, the violins and the flutes just fluttering around each other. That's such a classic thing to do with these instruments on a build up, is to give them these really quick rising and falling patterns to create upward movement, to play faster ideas, to kind of increase the intensity. It's a great way to build a section up, and they leaned into that. Yeah, dude, they brought harmon mutes into this. Harmon mutes are very cool. Unlike a straight mute, which typically helps muffle an instrument, the harmon mute for brass gives it a buzziness. It does mute the sound a little bit, but it gives it a specific buzzy texture. And you just don't hear it too often, ever. Much less in a rock band writing music for an orchestra. And it's just one of those things, just perks my ears up. I'm like, I love the harmony mute. It's my favorite sound on the trumpet. I bought a harmony mute before I even needed it. I remember my director, he was like, all right, this next piece I'm giving y'all, we're going to be playing it, whatever, months away or whatever. He's like, y'all need to pick up some harmony mutes in the next couple of weeks because you're going to need it for the performance. And I was like, I already got one. It was just, I love the sound of that. And I needed one immediately. And I'm happy to hear it in a piece like this. And it's all the little things, I think, that stand out to me the most here. There is a rock foundation at times harmonically throughout this, as I mentioned, but overall, it's contemporary classical music. You can't really tell me otherwise, and I think it's very cool. It's like Casey from The Deer Hunter. Started out in a post-hardcore, a little punk-oriented stuff, and writing classical music now. I love seeing that kind of thing. I really do. Now, aside from raw instrumentation, though, I also want to point out something that you don't see too often in rock, but definitely in classical, which is dynamics. We have a lot of that in here. Volume dynamics, layering dynamics. We have all sorts of movement, too, of parallel movement, where instead of the whole band getting louder or getting softer, we have inverse movement, where one instrument group might be coming down in layers or intensity or volume, and another will be rising in it. It makes the song feel incredibly dynamic. It makes it feel alive. And it's another one of those things that, as a grunge band, you probably want to think about. You set your amps to 10 and you play loud. Maybe you bring it down a little bit for, a quiet section, a verse or a bridge, but otherwise, you're just playing loud. And it's nice to see all of the variety on display here, knowing what instruments need to be in what sections to create what vibe and how dynamics play into that, the dynamics of timbres, of volume, of layering. It's all thought of. And I think that's what stands out to me on this, is that there's just so many other parameters to think about when you write music like this over traditional rock. And whether it's gut or if they spent the time learning, they're emulating some of their favorite musics, whatever. However they came to the conclusion that they needed to do all this, they did. And I'm really glad. It ends up being a song that is quite incredible. Even if it is iterative. I'm not going to say that there's anything that I haven't heard before. Like I mentioned, I feel like they are kind of wearing their inspirations on their sleeve a bit here. And, two of the times in here, I even called what they were going to do. They changed things up a little bit, caught me off guard, but I still saw the general idea of what was going on in the track and where they were heading based off of sounds or songs that I've heard that are similar to what they're doing. But that doesn't diminish it at all. The last thing I want to bring up here then is narrative, story. Much of this song, it feels heavy. The higher end instrumentation tends to want to expand the soundscape of the song. It wants it to feel like it can take off and go anywhere, limitless possibilities. The rest of the song doesn't really go that way. There's a tying down to the ground that I feel in this track, particularly not necessarily from the low end instruments, but the chord progression specifically. It tends to be more rooted than the slightly whimsical sound of many of the other sections and many of the other instrument parts. It's a song that feels like it wants more but can't have it. And I really feel like after we had that moment of just like constant tension and then the rising, and I really thought we were going to duck down after that, but we did 3 more rising tension sections, just really stuck in this rut, trying as hard as you can to break the chains that bind you, and then running out of strength. And that's what the downfall felt to me. Bringing the song down to just guitar and bass and drums for a moment, leveling out the mood. Anything that was bright or energetic or big or positive has been dashed. We're just stuck here. The song does eventually pull away from this, though. And it ends on a bigger note than I was expecting. I wonder if this character eventually gets to break their chains and do what they want. The music really makes it feel like this character wants that. And it would be a bit heartbreaking if the story went in a direction that didn't allow for that. However, they could be taking this in a very different direction, and I could have a very not what they were intending read on this. Great sentence there. Real good with words you are, Bryan. Let me check out some lyrics on this track, see what's going on there. The song appears to be about trying to be more, trying to not let fear rule your life, trying to open yourself up and be vulnerable, maybe. But also fearing all that can come from that. I'm actually a little confused about the song. If that seemed quite vague, like Bryan, you just said 3 wildly different things about it. Let's start from the top. It says, I fondle keys to my heart when everyone's heart seems so calm, and you found the lock to my dorm and opened the door to my trust fund. Now I'm going to assume the dorm and the trust fund are metaphors for him, the interior of him, and what he holds dearest. So he is very shaky or protective, though he fondles the keys to his own heart, so he's protective about it. He says everyone else seems so calm, though. They can just do whatever they want. But you've somehow broken into me. You've seen everything about me, everything that I cherish. From here, he jumps to the idea that the light in my darkest hour is fear, denies me of anything good. So don't lose your heart, you'll need it. Now, in your darkest hour, the light is the thing that guides you. So fear is his guiding light, but it denies him of anything good. Or the alternative reading of it would be that in his darkest hour, the only brightness is fear, which is also negative. It doesn't guide him anywhere. He's just darkness everywhere. He thought he was at his darkest point, and it gets worse. Either way, he feels trapped here. But he doesn't lose his heart. This moves to the chorus of to lose your heart, you'll have to take another pill and tell another lie and lie amongst your lies like tuna in the brine. So you're just going to have to lie a lot if you lose your heart. The chorus goes over my head, and usually the chorus is what helps tie a lot of disparate ideas together to find that unifying thread between all the metaphors. And I think that's my issue here. I kind of get what the verses are generally doing, but the chorus eludes me. The second verse says, take everything that you're not, and don't be so scared to tamper with tampered evidence, because you'll come along for the sun if you come at all. I think this is supposed to be implying that you shouldn't be afraid to do what's necessary. To tamper with tampered evidence. If it's already been altered, don't be afraid to alter it again. Maybe this is about fake it till you make it. Because if you come at all, if you decide to leave your space, your zone at all, you will leave and go along for the sun, the brightness, what he was just talking about not having. Any type of movement away from this will be one of positivity. And if you got to fake it to take that first step, then do it. The third verse says, closer now than we've ever been, than we ever should be, than we've ever been before. Closer to everything, busking for change and changing everything. Feeble fables aren't changing many things. It's time to shine like a tuna in the brine, for my pregnant paws aren't changing anything. What is with the tuna in the brine? I mean, this would assume that the tuna has been caught and cooked? Do you cook tuna before you can it in brine? Anyways, it's dead. It is now sustenance for someone else. That, I would imply, would be a bad thing for a song that's trying, I think, to tell you to live your life. Because, as he says in the chorus, if you lose your heart, you have to lie amongst your lies like tuna in the brine. That's negative, right? But here he talks about it positively. He says it's time to shine like tuna in the brine. Unless this is supposed to be inverse. It feels positive on the surface, but it's sarcastic. It implies a negative. He says, because my paws aren't changing anything. Maybe he's saying it's my time to be dead in a can because I'm not doing anything worthwhile at this point. His feeble fables aren't changing many things. Would this be the stories that he's telling, the songs that he sings? He says he's busking for change and changing everything. Maybe that's what he wanted to do. Music to be a part of him. And he wanted to change the world with it, but he's realizing that it's not doing anything like that. This takes me to the bridge. It's just a repetition of two lines, painting a lie, seeing the colors, but you seem closer to everything. Once again, dealing with lies, with things that aren't true, things that are not the way they appear to be. I don't know. It's, for a song that to me is pretty straightforward, the lyrics are wild. There's a lot of mixed metaphor in here, and phrases will be used positively and negatively, and it's really tough to figure out what all it's trying to say. So these are my thoughts. Silverchair's Tuna in the Brine. Help me out on this. These are... I was going to say it again. Do you agree with me on anything? Do you disagree? Do you have things that you need to correct me on? Do you have your own interpretation of this? Please put all of that and any other thoughts you have about this song down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.